was going to say record.
Okay, just started recording.
Okay, we can call the meeting to order for the Public Property and Law Enforcement Committee. Lori, if you want to do the roll call, please.
Laura Negro,
Here.
Mike Berlin,
Here.
Philomena Quebec,
Here.
Ron Stendor,
Here.
Doreen Hannanen.
Here.
Thank you. Next, we have the approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any additions or comments on the agenda?
Ron Stender will move to approve the agenda.
Ron makes some moves to approve the agenda. Do I have a second?
This is Doreen. I'll second.
Doreen's a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
You. Next is public comments, 3 minutes per person, and rules of etiquette and such prevailing, please. If anybody has any comments. The public comments, anyone online? Public comments. Okay, we can close public comments. Next is approval of our meeting minutes from October 25th, 2021.
Motion to approve minutes.
Philomena moved to approve the minutes, second by Ron. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes, please signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you, guys. Minutes approved. Next is our department reports, review of our 2021 budget.
Okay, so the numbers are in the packet. If you look at the courthouse one, we ended up finishing minus 24,000. Given all that went on in the building last year with employees moving around and other upgrades, I mean, 24,000 is not too bad, to be honest. And with the sheriff's department, they finished just about the same, negative 24,000, which out of a budget of over 5 million. That's really not much either, especially considering everything they went through last year too, with all the overtime and sick leave. Maybe Sheriff Brennan can talk about his department.
I say it was remarkable what they did over the last year with the challenges that we've had to be negative 24,000. It's probably one of the better years I've had it, to tell you the truth. But it's definitely a challenge and being very creative.
Yeah, I think they did a great job, in my opinion.
The overages is the overtime and such. And then being short on people.
Yeah.
Okay.
So on this budget, is this just coming from the general fund? Because I'm not seeing any inputs here. I'm assuming that because this is just expense based, that this would be what's coming out of the general fund, but there would be other like grant budgets, I would imagine, as well.
We actually appropriate that much money from the general fund,
Uh-huh.
the Sheriff's Department. So yeah, what you're seeing is the loss compared to the general fund contribution. I will say, I'm hoping in the very near future, we'll have more custom made reports for people. Where there's a new thing to Springbrook that allows us to actually customized reports. And even better, we can set them to email to people. So they like every week or every month you would get them. However, we set that up. Our consultants are working on that right now to get it to the way we want it. And then we'll start setting it up and we can make changes to it after that's out. And that will show you both grants and other revenues, and then general fund contribution, and then expenses and how they tie out.
Yeah, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, otherwise, the reports in Springbrook are not as easy to understand. I have to agree with that.
Because I know that there was that that revenue that was generated from the insurance claim, and it's that sort of input isn't captured here. I would imagine that went back to the general fund, but
Yeah, and I can ask Sue about that specific amount if you're.
okay.
So insurance claim.
Yeah, and you know how that outlay, or that outlay was captured here in this ledger. That's it. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions about the budget? I know when I keep asking for budgeted versus actual, so as big of a pain that is, that's why the module has been purchased for the extra reports, because I figure in committee, we should be looking at what departments we oversee and just keeping an eye on the budgeted versus actual. We can look at the general ledger and see the other inputs and pieces and such, but it's nice to have that budgeted versus actual so we can watch that as we go through our quarterly meetings.
Yeah, and like I said, hopefully we'll have that soon. And I'll send you a copy of what it looks like, and we can try to go from there.
Yep, we can always go to the committee.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, we have the Sheriff's Department report. Mick.
Okay, I gave you guys, I gave it to Dan, a couple of, first of all, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the first report of 2022. Dan's got a few things that I can put on the PowerPoint slide here for you, but the basic one we have is our Law Enforcement Committee report for January 2022. They had 15 arrests for the month, 31 citations issued, 11 complaints to investigate, and we had 440 calls for service. We had 18 bookings. Our average daily held in our facility at the time was 29. On the monitor was 16, and we had 8 boarded on the daily average. Our transportation breakdown, you can see a little bit lower. We had a total transport of 5,514 miles or 116 hours. And that's due to the Department of Corrections now opening up their doors in Dodge and being able to take some of the inmates that we've had here that have been sentenced for a while and being able to bring them there, plus our mental health transports to Winnebago and Mendota when they can't take our inmates or our mental health Chapter 51s in the Ashland Hospital. We have to bring them to either Mendota, Winnebago, or Maritime, wherever they have a bed available. So that's that. Our average population, or our population today is 32. We had 16 on the monitor and 6 boarded out. All of our females, by the way, are being boarded out because we don't have enough female correctional staff to be able to staff the jail 24 hours a day. So they were boarded out in Douglas County. That was the closest one that would take them. Until last Monday, we had to transport everybody to Oneida County because they had a COVID outbreak in their jail between staff and inmates, and they told us we had to get our inmates out of there. Bayfield County would not take them, so we brought them down to Oneida County. About a 2 hours and 20-minute drive one way to go down there. So our transportation costs are probably going to be going up again because we just had to take one that was arrested over the weekend that had a $2,000 cash fine. It was unable to post, and we had to bring her this afternoon. She was able to stay here for the weekend because we had enough female correctional officers on hand, but we just transported her this afternoon down to Oneida County. I don't know what we have next on here, what Dan has on. Scroll down to the next page, Dan. Kind of out of order, but this is the, we had talked about in our budget, it had a $3,000 line item that we wanted to have for capital outlay for beanbag rounds. It was allowed to go into our budget, but tabled and held until we could have discussion on this. I know I spoke with committee member Philomena Quebec, and she was concerned about the use of the devices of the beanbag and wanted to have more discussion on that and would like to see some type of a policy that we have. Well, we didn't take the time to write a policy out of it because I'm not going to waste the time of the people to do that. But I have a generic policy that we had from another department. We would have to tweak it, make some changes to it, but it gives you a general idea as to how a beanbag, less lethal round would be used and in our arsenal. It gives an officer on the street another less lethal option in the intervention options to help control a situation of a person who may be armed with an edged weapon or a pipe or doing other threatening matters that lethal force may be warranted, but if we have a beanbag round for less lethal, we'd be able to control the situation at a safe distance from the officer and be able to maintain control and take the person into custody with the least amount of injury to everybody involved. So I've got that for you guys to be able to read that, think about it. We can talk about it in the next meeting. I know there's a lot of stuff in that, so it's just a food for thought and to get this back out onto the dialogue and discussion aspect as to what are, as the Sheriff's Department's thoughts for the less lethal intervention option of a beanbag round for our 12-gauge shotguns. We already have the weapons. We wouldn't have to buy any type of shotguns. We would take those all out of our arsenal as far as lethal weapons and make them less lethal. So if any questions on that, I can be definitely entertain the question, but there's a lot of stuff in here, so you can read that over and we can discuss it further. Before I go on, I'll just see if there's anything else that you have. Any questions on that?
Does anybody
Hey,
have
Mick,
any
this is
questions?
Philomena.
Go ahead,
That's
Philomena.
I really appreciate you sharing this. Is this from Washburn, Wisconsin, their police department
I'm not
policy?
sure where you got it. I'm not sure what department it was from. Oh yeah, Washburn Police Department. Yep.
Okay.
Sergeant Wilbur got that for me.
Yeah, I think this is what I like in here is that it talks about the circumstances for deployment. And these seem like appropriate circumstances. One of my concerns would be that, these kinds of weapons should not be deployed if someone, merely for somebody's passive non-compliance with law enforcement directives. So if they're not engaging in any violence, but maybe they're just not complying in a peaceful way, I would not approve of a policy that would allow the deployment of weapons against them. But, certainly if there is, if there's credible threats of harm or, any kind of other violent behavior, like, throwing rocks or projectiles against people or officers, or they've already committed a crime of violence. I mean, I think that would be appropriate and I would support that. But, that would be one clarification that I'd be looking for. They're just merely refusing to comply with officer directives would not be a means. I mean, certainly there are some people who are, there's always people that could be in some kind of mental health crisis and they have maybe they're having an episode where they don't understand what the commands are. There's also people with developmental disorders. I've heard of situations where like an individual who has autism is, somehow becomes engaged in some violent activity by law enforcement because they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And then, you know, there's peaceful protesting, and I don't think any of those circumstances warrants being harmed by a potentially fatal and, you know, weapon. So that would be my concern, Sheriff.
That would be my concern too, Phil. I mean, and that's why we have this. That's why we go to a less lethal. This gives an officer another chance to be able to control the situation without having to use deadly force. And the only time that the less lethal would be used, and this is in situations where the officers has a legitimate and imminent threat to them, and the officer would be justified in using deadly force, but they would use this as a alternate rather than having to use a deadly force option. So if you read through it, that's exactly what it says. And we have Lexipol as our policy underwriter, and it does that. And before it would ever be deployed or ever do it, we would have that. Those same guidelines would be specifically stated in that. You know, you don't use it just because a person's being passive or actively resistant. You know, you have your electronic devices that you can use for that. You have active countermeasures. You have OC spray. You have different devices that you can be used to that. A beanbag round is just an intervention option that an officer would be able to use rather than having to shoot somebody. But they would have to have a lethal force backup on that. You know, another officer there. So we can discuss this further if you want to. But I agree with you. It should not be used in those ways that you've described.
Yeah, that sounds good. Just making sure it's crystal clear would be my concern. So and I appreciate everything you said. I think I wish maybe we can go back in the recording and make sure that we write down exactly what you said, because I think that should be contained within the policy itself. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions on that? I'm sure there will be, and if you decide that this is something you want to go forward with, this is something that before this would be put into the Ashland County Sheriff's Department's intervention options, we would have the officers would be trained on the use of the beanbag round by a certified instructor, and the policy would be out there and read and approved and signed off by each officer that they understand and comply with the policies. So all I'm trying to do right here is to try to give my deputies another option to have out there so that they can maintain safety for everybody with the minimum amount of force necessary.
Anyone else have any questions for Mick on this? Thank you, Mick. I appreciate you digging into this and finding a good template for a policy for this, and also explaining it as well as you have. Your diligence is very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Do you have
I've al-
anything
I've al-
else?
As a matter of fact, I've got a few other items that you guys can look at. I have in the packet, I'm not sure if it's there or not, but the number of calls we had for service for 2021 and the number of incident reports that we had for 2001, and then a breakdown of, it breaks it down as to the types of calls they were and the areas where the calls came from, the different locations throughout the county, different districts. So I don't see that on the report there, but just to give you a quick down and dirty, it's we had 7,867 calls for service in 2021, and we had 872 incident reports that were investigated by our deputies. The 872 incident reports are reports that need more than just a like an accident report or something like that. It definitely is a more serious type case that takes more time and effort. As I've done in the past, just a quick update on our staffing and our issues that we have here. We've got patrol staffers currently in good shape. We have a full staff right now on patrol. Our jail is short 2 female correctional officers. Thus our inmates having to be housed at different counties at this time. We did put out job applications and have got 2 applicants that failed the background check. So we're still looking for 2 female correctional officers. Anybody who knows anybody that's interested in becoming a correctional officer, send it my way, and we could definitely entertain any potential applicant. Dispatch, right now, we're filling 2 part-time positions. One is starting on Wednesday, and we just did an interview and doing a background check on the second one today. COVID issues with staff, we've been lucky. We've had a lot of COVID with our staff, but it's happened in waves where we've had 2 or 3 out at a time, so it has an impact as far as being too short-staffed. We've had some overtime to cover shifts, but we haven't been to some departments where they had nobody that was able to work. Luckily, with the due diligence on my jail staff, we have no inmates that have had COVID and are still putting the inmates into a isolation cells for at least 5 days before they're put out in general population. So we were very fortunate in that aspect. Our body scanner is up and running in the jail, and Lieutenant Lavasser could answer any questions that you might have on that. We ordered the 2 squads that were in our budget for this year. However, the delivery date is unknown due to manufacturing efficiencies and transportation. So we've got 2 ordered, but no idea as to when they may or may not be here. So we've got our training budget this year is going to probably take a little bit of a hit because we would send our patrol officers and our jail officers to the mandatory 24-hour in-service that they have to have yearly to WITC in Ashland, now Northwood Technical College, and they're not offering the 24-hour in-service in Ashland any longer. So it means I have to send officers outside of our county, which means there's per diem cost, lodging costs, and overtime costs that's going to be associated with that rather than being able to do that. So we're kind of being a little creative here. Myself and the other instructors are trying to put together some type of at least a 16-hour in-house training for this year to keep the cost down and to get the officers the needed training that they have and to be able to fulfill the state of Wisconsin's requirement for a 24-hour minimum recertification and ongoing education for every officer. So I think that's about all for right now. If anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to entertain them.
Mick,
hearing none,
I'm wondering, just on the training question, I'm wondering if there's a way we could coordinate with other local law enforcement agencies, because I'm sure they're running into the same issues, hey?
Well, we've done that in the past. We've actually been the ones that helped out the other agencies. I have 2 EVOC and technical response officers on our agency that are certified. So we've done the Ashland Police Department, LaPointe Police Department, Mellon Police Department for our emergency vehicle operations. That's a biannual requirement. So we've done that and sponsored this year and put it on at no cost to the other agencies. So we are definitely looking at any avenue. As a matter of fact, the less lethal instructor would be from the Ashland Police Department to keep the cost down for that. But yeah, Philomena, we definitely look at all of our resources and availabilities that we have out there and make sure that we use all the resources available to us to keep our costs down and to make sure we have worthwhile and meaningful training to the officers.
Yeah, from my I know that Gliffwick officers also engage in training, like they do the EVOC and some other trainings. Sometimes they work with the DNR and that kind of stuff. So I mean, if it would be helpful for me to reach out to Jim Stone or somebody like that.
Not necessarily, I appreciate it, but Jim Stone and I, we've always done the cooperative training. Jim is actually on our roster also for our 303 roster.
Yep.
And we've utilized Gliffwick in the past for our active shooter training, our training exercises, and using the range out there on Pine Flats. So
Excellent.
we do work in coordination with them. So, but thank you for the offer. But Jim's been very helpful and very well taken as far as helping us out whenever and anytime he can.
Yeah, he's great. He's great. Okay.
Thank you.
Any more questions for Mick? Kim, did you have any updates then? Oh, there we go, truth. All right, I know Dorothy is not here for her update. She did email me and say that she's been working on the fiscal year 22 EMPG directives and mitigation projects. She's been working on that North Communications Tower. The grant was closed out, disbursements requested, and received notice of the disbursement check in the mail. There was cost overrun, but we will only receive reimbursement based on the award. As funding for other projects may get turned back to Ashland County, may receive additional reimbursement, but not at this time. She hasn't received any information from the fiscal year 21 EMPG, the EPCRA, or the Computer Hazmat Equipment Grant, and that she is working with Northwest Regional Planning Commission. They submitted a grant application through the BRIC program to update our hazard mitigation plan. The plan needs to be updated every 5 years, and our plan will expire in 2024. She said we should hear if our application was accepted later this year, and the planning process takes approximately 1.5 years to complete. This would put us in the similar time frame, the 2024, to adopt the updated plan. Next, then, we have our courthouse maintenance report, Sarah Linefelder.
Can I use adult language?
Oh.
Okay, you can fill in your own words where you want to. I hate snow. I used to enjoy snow, but I don't anymore. I will admit to feeling a bit overwhelmed by the enormity of what needs to be done at the courthouse. While I know that it is time for Jim to retire, I regret the loss of the vast institutional knowledge that both he and Mark have. And I have a great appreciation for what Jim has done to preserve that knowledge for me and other people to peruse through to find out what went on. There's a lot that has been put onto the back burner for years because of funding constraints, and we don't have the option to postpone this anymore, and we need to act. Flagpole now has a locking halyard cover thanks to Kyle Schmidt. His fabrication met our specific needs and cost less than the options I found via the internet. Cost for returning hardwired electrical service to the flagpole by a professional would be about $4,000. To purchase materials for a solar light specific to our needs would be about $2,000, but that does not include installation, and the batteries do need to be replaced every 3 to 5 years. I believe Dan is working on a solution that would reduce the cost for the hardwired lights significantly, but it sounds like it's going to hurt my back pretty badly. Painting the flagpole should come in around $2,000, and I believe the ball on top of the flagpole is made of brass, and that should be restored to its original luster. And I will be raising and lowering the flag daily until the pole has proper lighting again. Windows. The offices where I was requested to plasticate the windows have reported a significant improvement in their comfort level. I would like to recommend having all office windows be covered in plastic window insulation to reduce heat loss. I've purchased a roll of weather stripping for the windows and will be working on the windows in the public areas, courtrooms, hallways, to reduce the cold and snow infiltration. There are numerous window sills that have water damage from snow blowing through the windows. Heating. Spending a lot of my time learning about steam heat in general and our system in specific. What I have found is that there are a number of radiators that fill with the condensate that is draining down from the attic versus filling with steam to provide heat. Part of this issue is that the steam pipes in the attic are not completely insulated, and the steam condenses to water before it even gets to the radiators. An example of how much heat loss can be: a slow shut-off valve, which is one of the ones where you got to turn it with both hands. on a 6-inch pipe can have 4 square feet of surface area. That's a lot of exposed pipe to be losing heat out of. There are materials for insulating the valves and joints in the attic, and until recently, I wasn't aware of the importance of that insulation. Another part of the problem with the condensate is that the return lines are probably corroded enough to restrict how quickly the condensate can flow back to the reservoir in the boiler room. Therefore, the condensate needs to go someplace, and it goes to its nearest place that it can fill, which is a radiator. There's a number of radiators I'll sit next to, and I can hear bubbling into it. This is why, at minimum, we need to replace those lines. In the steam heat discussion forums that I've been perusing, clogged pipes are discussed as a reason for radiator issues, but the consensus seems to be that anything you do to try to reduce the corrosion will eat through the pipes. So just trying to clean the pipes won't cut it. Additionally, most of the Johnson Control piston operators on the valves are 30 years or more older and may not be working properly. I have a list of waterlogged radiators started for the service technician to deal with this summer. Roof leak in the southwest corner. Heather Schutte has been having water issues in her office, and meltwater from the roof is one of the suspected sources. It has been rather cold lately, so not much is melting. I am very concerned about what's going to happen during spring melt. One day in December, when the temps were warm enough, we had to empty a 20-gallon garbage can twice in one day from all the water that was pouring into the courtroom. I am entertaining the suggestion that Judge McKnight made of putting a sump pump in there, so then it doesn't have to be continually checked. There have been some delays in getting a contractor to come in to repair the beam that is rusted through, but I hope that those issues have been resolved. The leak into my boiler room, nothing's happening with it right now. I'm presuming that it's all coming in through the metal plates that cover that room. I did put one tarp over the top of it to see if, this is going to help. And if it is, then I'm going to seal that next summer and make sure that the water don't come back in. Cleaning the attic, boiler room, closet, storage, and office is a slow ongoing process. I try to only fill the dumpster to 1/3 with my trash. Resurfacing the floors. I have delayed starting the restrooms because the toilet cleaner we use melts the acrylic finish. But that issue should be resolved now that I'm going to be having somebody new for cleaning the toilets at some point. And I will restart resurfacing things. I have completed the 3rd floor men's room, the employee entrance on the north side of the building, and the foyer in the county clerk's office. It's not a great amount of work done, but I'm pretty pleased with the results. I had intended to do a lot of work over the holidays, but Dan kiboshed that because I would have to get paid extra money to do it. Okay. Immediate plans to continue cursing snow as vehemently as I can. Return to stripping and resurfacing the restrooms. Continue with cleaning the attic, office, boiler room, storage room, and janitor's closets. Remove, resurface, repaint, replace bench slats by the flagpole. Continue learning the operation and maintenance of all the building's systems. And continue bringing smiles to the people who work in and visit the courthouse.
Okay, and I just have a couple additions to expand on some of what Sarah said. She had talked about the I-beam. We've all seen pictures of it. It's corroded. It's not structurally sound. We did get one quote from a contractor to do the repair. It was around $1,200, give or take $100. We did have another one come in last week. to look at it, and we're waiting for a quote from that. The other one is interested in doing the bigger project. The bigger project is tuck pointing the entire building. That will probably fix the leak problem that's in the clerk's office, fix the leak problem in Sarah's office, and make her stop cursing. Of course, we don't know. It could be something else because you never know with water. The piping she spoke about, that's going to be about $250,000 to replace. Just so everybody's on notice. So, you know, when you see the repair bills coming for the bigger project, you're looking at 7 figures. You're not looking any cheaper. Obviously, we're going to want to do as much as possible within that when we're doing that. That means the piping, the new hydraulics for the elevator, the tuck pointing, fixing any other beams in the roof, figuring out what we're gonna do with 514. Because I know for a fact if we bond, we're gonna bond once because we won't be able to get the votes to do it twice. So we need to consider everything that needs to be done with that one bonding vote. Now, why isn't any of this happened yet? We have a hard time getting contractors here. They're all busy. They all have more work than they can handle. You know, taking on the lowest bidder, having to be the lowest bidder on a project doesn't really attract them. So, you know, we're looking at the possibility this stuff may not be done this year. If we get an RFP out tomorrow, have it sent back in, say, the end of March, because there's a lot they would have to do, they wouldn't be able to start till the following year. So we have to be prepared for more damage to occur, water damage to occur, more issues to occur, and flying by the seat of our pants when it comes to the building. Now, I know some people have asked about all the paper upstairs. We finally come to an arrangement with the judge. So what's going to happen is our court reporter retired. So her office is becoming free. So commissioner is moving to the small courtroom because he's only here once in a while. And the new court reporter is going to take his office. Probate will move to the court reporter's office. The probate office will then become storage for the clerk of courts. So all of her files will go down there and they'll be accessible for clerk of courts and probate. DA's office files, those are all going to go in the GIS office. Brittany works remotely and does a pretty good job of it remotely. I don't see any reason to stop that. So we're going to put all the DA's files in there. Highway department is going to be doing all the moving. So they're going to, individual departments will pack up their own boxes and label them because I don't think they want highway to do that. And they will move all the furniture out, bring everything down. What we don't want, they will take back to highway and burn. So now is the perfect opportunity for every office to get rid of anything they don't want, and the highway department will get rid of it. We can start this process as soon as next week. Obviously, it's going to be dependent on when the files get all boxed, and they've already started that process, and when the highway department can get here. But it will be done soon. Every other department can make room in their current offices for their stuff. And hopefully all that stuff's out of there soon enough. But it did take a lot of moving around and making everybody happy.
I have a question, Dan.
Sure.
Are we at any point in the future going to get away from the paper, take what we have on paper, digitize it, and you don't have all these storage problems? Because we're just kicking the can down the road with this.
Yeah, and so the way it's back since ever since 2014 or 16, all the court records have been digital.
Okay.
So what we have now for the clerk of courts is old files. Stuff that they statutorily have to keep until such time. Like there are some felonies they have to keep for 75 years, which blows my mind. But yeah, as far as digitizing them, I've suggested that. I even offered to hire a temp worker to do it. They're not there yet on that. They are slowly doing it themselves. But it's obviously a long process, and they want to do it themselves because a lot of civil records are private, confidential, and there might be some of the felony records that are still confidential by court order. DA's office has been moving to everything to digital. The stuff he has is still old, but some of it's ongoing cases. As those cases go away, files will go away. As we can digitize, we will.
Okay.
But it's going to be a very long process. As far as the rest of the county goes, everything's almost all digital.
Good.
Matt, can you use your mic?
Is there a requirement to keep the paper copies or?
No, there's not a requirement to keep the paper copies.
Okay.
It's a matter of getting the paper copies digitized. And I'm not sure CCAT might have certain requirements on how it's done. I do know once they scan something in, every lawyer involved in the case gets notification. And I got phone calls from lawyers last week saying, how come I got 100 emails? Well, it's because we're scanning your case in. And they have to be notified. So
That's what we want to do, is gin up all the lawyers, so.
so we are moving on the repairs. It's slow because we can't get numbers from contractors. We can't get them to come here. We can't get them to give us a number. Most of the contractors I've called, I won't even call me back. You call them up a second or a third time, they don't call you. So they are also our structural engineer, he's going to come back here when the snow melts. That way he can actually see things better and get a much better look of the building and come up with a better scope of work. I'm also going to have him look at 514 and see if that building's even worth saving. It might be one of those situations where we just sell it for $1 to get rid of it. Well, there's literally the old storm sewer running right through the bottom of it, wide open. Then you go down the basement, there's this giant hole, like as big as this wall, that you can see out of it. And it goes down at 15, 20 feet to the old street and sidewalk. I mean, the elevator, where the elevator shaft is, the elevator is nice and straight. There's nothing wrong with it. The building's pulling away from it is the problem with it. There's a 1-inch gap right now. So I've told them not to use the elevator because it's just not safe. I think there are occasions where they have to, but in general, they're not using it. So we got to have a structural engineer who knows about these older buildings actually really look at it and give us a detailed report on it. And again, that won't happen until the snow melts. So yeah, we could be looking at, in the bonding, doing something with that too, either replacing it or repairing it.
No matter what you say, it's going to be millions.
Yeah, Yeah.
Miles.
he's right.
This is Philomena Quebec, Supervisor Quebec.
Go ahead.
So Dan, have you guys looked into any of the infrastructure bill opportunities? Because we're doing that at the tribe, and kind of the first gaze is just identifying on a broad level where we have needs, and then the infrastructure bill titles might fit with those needs.
Mhm.
And a lot of it is going to require sort of massaging your project into one of the policy outcomes that they're looking for, like climate resilience or disaster preparedness or other sorts of things. But there's a lot of money in the infrastructure bill.
Yep.
I would imagine that what you would have to go for is a competitive grant, and
Mhm.
it takes a lot of effort to do that. But I wonder, I haven't seen any resources from NACO about that yet, but maybe there are some resources. Maybe we could hire a grant writer to get us some money in order to take care of some of the courthouse projects.
Yep. Yeah, and I'm looking at everything that comes through, and there's a lot of stuff that's coming through, and the bill is still being sorted out. Part of the problem with the infrastructure bill is while the money's been authorized by Congress, it hasn't been appropriated by Congress. So there's a huge appropriation gap between what was authorized and what we actually have available. So we are actually, for some of these projects, going to have to wait for Congress to actually appropriate the money. We have been looking at it for highway, though. There's going to be over $1 billion worth of money coming into the state for Wisconsin counties and municipalities. So Matt's already got one grant request in. It was due today. And then he has another one due next month. So we are aggressively going after that money. But bear in mind, any grant we get is usually going to have a split.
Yep.
So like the highway ones are 80-20. So we might get $5 million in highway money, but we're going to have to put up $1 million of our own, which again means more borrowing. But that's good borrowing because we're getting a whole bunch of free money.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing about this courthouse project is we're going to have to pay for it anyway.
Yes.
So leveraging county money and kind of giving our taxpayers a break, I think should be prioritized.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to try to do. We're going to try to get as much free money out there to do all of our projects. It's not just here or the highway. Everything we do, we're going to be looking for grants because that is the best way we can pay back the taxpayers.
And sometimes these grants are just enormous and overwhelming, and it really takes somebody who knows how to write these grants and can focus in on just that project in order to make a competitive proposal. So, I think that would be an investment worth our money in order to do something like that.
Yeah. For an example of cost, and MSA Services generally charges $8,000 to do a CDBG grant. Of course, the success rate is probably the best in the state. So, if you get $1 million grant, your $8,000 is really nothing.
Absolutely. I agree. Yep.
Yeah. And I've been talking to Matt about that, and I was going to be bringing it up to the executive committee about going out and hiring a company like MSA to do some of this stuff. But we need more data from the federal government. They're still coming out with these program rules.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Now, I feel like now is the time to get things aligned so you can go after those big projects.
Right. And I would point out the tribe has more opportunities than we do too.
Agreed. But yeah, tables for a long time.
Yeah.
The exact
it's a good
opposite
thing.
has been.
We have to, when I went to Mellon last week, and one of the things I had to remind people is when the city of Mellon does well, the county does well. The same thing holds true for the tribe. When the tribe does well, the county does well. And so our goal should be to lift up every single community in the county, because in the end, that helps us all.
Yep, I agree.
Exactly. And you and I have talked about doing like a space needs study as this stuff goes along and trying to fit those pieces in. So.
Right. And as we can find more money, there might be different options for us.
Yeah. Sarah? Thank you so much for your report. I appreciate all the work that you're doing, and with the projects that we're looking at, the pipes, the I-beam, the tuck pointing and et cetera, are we just starting a list, a
We're-
file?
We're starting a list and, Chair Poofall asked, are we going to even save the building? Because, when we first heard about this, it was catastrophic. And that's a question the county board's going to have to answer when we get all these costs in. Is it worth saving the building or putting up a new campus on the 20 acres, or was it 10 or 20 acres of
20
land
acres, yeah.
that we own? But, we're gonna have to wait for all the costs to come in, and there might be grants out there to cover 80% of that.
Yeah.
In which case, maybe that is the direction to go. But we don't know until we get all the costs and we see what's out there.
Does anyone have any more questions for either Sarah or Dan on the projects that we just discussed? Okay, then we can move on to the Sheriff's Department and Jail Administrator, Lieutenant Lavasser.
Hi there.
Hello.
So right now, our biggest challenge is just how shorthanded we are. No one is getting any vacation time. We've had a lot of people out with COVID and sickness, so everyone's been putting in a lot of overtime. We've been housing out our females, like Mick was telling you, the Sheriff Brennan was telling you, in Douglas County up in Superior, and they had a COVID outbreak in their jail, and then it hit the staff. So they called and said, we need you to pick up your females. I called every county in the northern region. The closest place I could bring them was Oneida County, which is in Rhinelander. So we had to haul all of our females down there. So it's been a challenge. That's our biggest issue right now, is just the staffing. We did have a vaccination clinic back at the beginning of the month. We're going to have another clinic tomorrow. They'll be doing the second shot for them. They're going to be doing booster shots. We'll be doing vaccines for people who would like their first shots tomorrow. That's available to anyone, including staff. And that's basically the new stuff that's going on. I did also put a graph on there for you guys, because they were looking for current inmates by race. You could see 48% Caucasian, 46% Native American, and 6% African American. Other than that, the sheriff told you the rest of our information about the bookings and the average daily population. The MAT update and progress. There is no progress at this point right now, just due to our staffing situation. If we could get, because our biggest problem is COVID related, we have to quarantine anyone who's been outside of the jail, and we don't have good quarantine areas. We don't have a lot of bunk area for quarantining people. So if we could get the doctor from Essentia to come here and do the shots for the inmates, that would be ideal. Otherwise, if Bad River could do the shots for all of the inmate population, not just the native population, because unfortunately we can't discriminate on only one set of people. They would have to come in and be able to do it for everyone. If they could come in and do that, we would be more than happy to allow that as well. But unfortunately, we just can't take inmates out of the facility because then they would have to be quarantined again. And we're actually quarantining for 7 days with a negative test before they go into population. So there is actually no progress yet on the MAP program. For the jail assessment, we have, I sent an estimate from Jamar Company. This is our heating program. The program we have right now runs on Windows XP. None of our computers are Windows XP. We have to, our IT person had to load it specifically so that we can run this program. And it's very outdated. We have a lot of problems with it. The IT guy looked at this quote. It's approximately $4,500 or $4,900 and $4,920. And he said that for the software and system that we could get, that it is an extremely good deal for what we're doing right now, especially since what we're doing is so outdated that we're lucky that we're actually able to run our heating program as it is. We're hoping that we can get this approved to go through our jail assessment fund. And we do have our inmate washing machine ordered. Unfortunately, they've got approximately 1 month out before they can come and install. They're very short-handed as well. We are trying to get the convection oven ordered for the kitchen, but apparently there's some part in these convection ovens that they are unable to get. So the ones that they've been trying to order have been unavailable. So they're still trying to get one ordered that will work in our kitchen with the electrical, with the outlets and stuff that we have, without having to go into a whole lot of like having an electrician come in and revamp the electrical system. I am trying to get a new bookshelving unit for our library system because we want to get some workout equipment in our library for the inmates. The workout equipment is approximately $3,000. And if we can get this new bookshelving, it will be like right up against the wall. It'll be wall to wall, about 4.5 feet high. And it'll actually be the same amount of bookshelves that we have right now, but it'll be a lot different the way that it is, the way that it's in the room right now. It'll be put a lot differently so that there will be space for the workout equipment, And I think it would be a lot better for the inmates so that they have something to look forward to be able to work out then. So, all in all, we'd have to get it approved through the jail inspector. She has to approve the detention grade library as well as the workout equipment. And that's really all I have at this time.
Whole bunch from you too, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, did anyone have any questions on Kim's piece of report?
This is Supervisor Quebec.
Mama?
I just have a concern related to open meetings compliance with respect to the proposal that was submitted for the for the software that's needed. I don't, it's not clear to me from reading the agenda that we would be recommending or approving
We're not approving anything.
so is that going to the finance committee? Because I don't see that on the finance committee budget or the finance committee agenda.
No, it's under amount where I can approve it.
Okay. Okay,
This
good.
is for, that was for information so you guys, so the committee just knows what's going on.
Oh, okay, perfect. Perfect.
Yeah,
That
that's
sounds
all.
good. And it sounds like a smart idea, obviously very needed. On the improvements to the library, I'm also in favor of that. I think that's wonderful. I know that there's really a need for more enrichment opportunities while people are in the jail. I'm just wondering if there's a budget line that can be drawn from, or would we have to modify the budget?
No, we wouldn't have to modify the budget at all. That would be from our jail assessment fund, and the money is already there, so it wouldn't come out of our budget at all. We already
Perfect.
have the money available.
I think that's a great use for those funds. Excellent.
Is there any other questions?
Just to come, tomorrow morning, Finance Committee is going to be addressing the staff shortage at the jail. They'll be considering approving a $2 an hour raise for jail employees, so we can hopefully recruit and retain our employees.
Great, thank you, Dan.
And thank you, Kim. I really appreciate all the stuff you guys are dealing with over there. Dealing with COVID plus all the regular things, and then the shortage of workers too. So thank you. The next part is just information points, awareness, and then any recommendations from our administrator. Go ahead, Dan.
So, as all you probably know, hasn't had a 5-year plan in a while, at least in a few years. So we've been working with our consultants and we basically stole this from Washara County. So you'll see a few words that need to be replaced on here yet. But the basic idea is every department will stick the dollar amount for their capital projects or capital purchases. So like, if the clerk wants to buy new voting machines for municipalities, which is, by the way, is going to be a requirement, the old machines will not be supported by the companies. She would put the estimated dollar amounts in there. Zoning would too. Sarah would put stuff in here. This is where we'd stick all those building repairs. Forestry, obviously playground equipment can go, but they have other things that they can do. Sheriff for his equipment purchases. And so we would be looking at, say, every year he's purchasing a car, and you would have that in there. Aging, there's a possibility that they may be coming back to the county, so that's on there. If they needed a vehicle, that would go on there. IT, we're constantly going to have to upgrade. In fact, we are going to have to upgrade to a .gov account, a domain name pretty soon, within the very near future. because to be compliant with Department of Homeland Security rules. Highway, we sort of stuck in here what it would look like. And then we'd add all the funding sources. So if you look at the highway, because it looks like a huge number, $12 million at the end. You also look, the tax levy really hasn't changed. The money's coming from federal aids and state aids. And so this is where we'd put our proposed grant monies. So if the infrastructure bill, we thought we could get some money, we'd stick it in there. And so this is just a listing for way people can easily see what we're planning for in the future, how we're going to budget for it. And the one thing to remember is if something's in 2023, but we get a grant for something we had in 2026, we're going to move things around because we're going to go for the free money and do the project that's funded first. But so this is how we're going to start doing it. Wanted you guys to see it just so you know that we are working on it. Sure.
How do you differentiate between short-term and longer-term capital? And are you going to have it all together? Have you gotten that far yet?
Well,
Is it
yeah.
dollar amount, or how are you going to plan it?
Well, part of it is use, and part of it is dollar. Because a general threshold is $5,000 between short-term and long-term. That doesn't mean that you can't have a $10,000 expense that's going to be short-term. That doesn't mean, so anything IT is generally going to be, if it's over 5,000, is going to be a long-term expense. If it's under, it's not. Road building and repairs to the buildings and stuff are obviously long-term expenses. Vehicle purchases are long-term expenses. So we're going to use that $5,000 threshold as a general rule. It will vary depending on the project, but that's the general rule we're going to use.
But it'll make budgeting, and especially 3 to 5 years down the road, to make sure that we know what kind of big projects we're going to have.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody on the county board is going to be able to look and so if we have to go to the population and say, hey, we need a referendum and this is why, we can show them we've broken it down. Here's the funding that we can have and the possibilities, and then go from there. So it makes things clear, and anything that's clear for the public is the best. So I appreciate the work on this.
Yeah. And, as we go along with this process, if county board supervisors have suggestions to improve it, we're always willing to look at that. These are not static documents. They can change. And, we need to mold these things to our needs. So here's just another way of looking at it. This is all on the website if you want to see it. So like this version here has more detailed stuff on it. And so what we'll end up doing with this capital budget is the county board will get the top sheet. And then the backup stuff will be with it. But you'll have the top sheet for easy reference. So you don't have to wade through 100 pages of stuff. If you want to, you can. It'll be there for you to go to it, but
It'll be me and Pat digging through it.
Right, probably.
Philomena too.
And we're going to do that with the budget as a whole. You can see everything behind the numbers, but for the ease of understanding for most people, we're going to just present the bigger numbers.
Yeah.
And then if you have questions, you can drill down into it.
I always like easier dashboards like that because, like I said, where you or I could dig into some of this stuff, there's even people in the public that don't understand all of the numbers on there, and it can be very overwhelming. So it's kind of just a cheat sheet then.
Yeah, and when you look at the numbers, you start looking at them, you'll start seeing, well, wait a minute, there's something wrong there because that number is too high or too low.
Yeah.
And so that's when you go back and look into the detail.
Is there any questions on that for Dan? Okay. Seeing none. There is a review of the county-owned land and real estate in the county-owned land is the next piece in the packet. These are information pieces, so we're aware of what properties we own, and it's good to review them every year.
There's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them. Yeah. And
Yeah, and a lot of them are tax deeds too, you know,
yeah,
so hopefully we can sell those
so,
and get it out of underneath us.
so. Is there any other updates that you have, Dan?
I think I've covered everything.
It's been a lot of stuff with a lot of big numbers in a short amount of time, so.
Well, I generally like to talk about it on topic if there is one,
Yeah,
instead of, otherwise it becomes disjointed when you,
truth. Okay, next meeting date, I'm looking at the last Monday in March at 5 o'clock, March 28th, as long as I clicked on the right thing on my laptop. Does that seem all right? Everybody just writing it down?
Yeah, that seems fine. Hey, one thing that I
Sure.
want to note is that the county packet did not include any race or age data for the jail. So I think maybe there was a miscommunication. Kim said that she had included that. So I'm just wondering if we can make sure that those materials are updated.
yeah, we'll have the clerk upload anything
Yeah.
that's missing.
There seems to be two of the one piece. from the
Yeah.
sheriff's Department, so I'm
Yeah.
wondering if it was just an accidental, so. we will
Absolutely.
definitely get that
Yep.
in that packet and let you guys know that it's out there.
Right.
Okay.
So, okay, next meeting date is March 28th then. Lori's that work on the calendar?
Yes, it does.
Nobody else is fighting me for a 5 o'clock Monday.
Nope, no.
Okay, excellent.
One other thing that I just wanted to note is that between Clark's leaving and Dan, you're coming on board with us. We had kind of a loss of continuity with respect to the use of dogs by police policy. And I would like to have that added to the agenda for the March agenda. Because we were supposed to get an update from legal and maybe a review from other law enforcement agencies related to that resolution. So I would just like that added to the agenda.
We also need to do an actual policy for the beanbags.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
So in between now and the end of March, if you guys want to take that great piece that Mick gave us and dig down into it, and if there's ideas you have, especially maybe like Ron too, because I know that
Yeah.
Ron may have written a policy or two like this before, so, and Philomena, you know, you with your great legal mind, so.
I've written use of force policies,
There
so
we go.
yeah,
So
all
there
good.
should be a great policy coming out of that, and then we'll make sure and put the use of dogs on there for the next one. And then, as usual, I will email out to you, Philomena, and I'll send out something to the committee too for anything else once we get within a couple of weeks of the meeting. If there's nothing else, I would entertain that lovely motion that everybody usually wants to make.
Motion to adjourn. This is Mike.
Okay, I will give Mike the first on that, and then Ron the second for it. All those in favor of ending our wonderful meeting tonight, please signify by saying aye.
All right.